Salvador is the elected chairman of the National Spectrum Consortium. He has served in various leadership roles in commercial and public sector companies focused on wireless communications and spectrum management. He previously served as NSC chairman from 2018 to 2020. Additionally, he has served on the board of the Wireless Innovation Forum and as appointed commission member to the Arlington County Information Technology Advisory Committee. It's a pleasure for me to welcome Salvador into our forum today. Salvador, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. You can see my slides?
Yes, we can see it.
Great. Thank you. So I'm Sal Dietry. I'm the current chairman of the National Spectrum Consortium. My talk, which will be short, I promise, is hopefully provocative on the role of dual use technology approaches as we think about next G and a little bit of the lessons learned in 5G and why this is important. So first, who is the National Spectrum Consortium? We're really a community of interest of companies, of academia, large, small, Silicon Valley innovators, large DoD companies like Qualcomm that are members, that create next generation wireless concepts, but more importantly, reduce them to practice. So we prototype solutions very quickly to see what will stick, what has commercial application, what can work, and move on. And that has a tremendous benefit as we think about collaborations between the public sector, Department of Defense and others, and the commercial world. How can we all move together in this 5G, next G environment? And how do we innovate and stay ahead working with things like standards? So we're fostering US leadership currently in 5G and spectrum, and I'll talk about that. We've had about $1 billion, a little over $1 billion in funding so far, which is not commercial money, but it's pretty big effort. Huge pie chart of our members. Sometimes you think these consortium are made up of insiders and big companies. We're really not. Non-traditionals are folks like you on the phone. They're folks who may just be starting their first company after leaving academia. Maybe they're an academic who has a great idea and they're looking for funding and, more importantly, a path to transition that technology, whether it's to DoD, whether it's to commercial, whether it's to private equity or venture company. We are that ecosystem as part of that. And I think play a piece in the puzzle as we think about next G technologies. So what's the value of dual use? Why is this even important to us? First of all, what is it? It's a collaboration between governments and the commercial industry. And I would not limit that just at the US government. I've had the pleasure of speaking before the National Spectrum Consortium of the United Kingdom. If we talk about opening up spectrum bands in next G, we're going to need to put together a coalition. And sometimes, while country-to-country agreements are interesting, this kind of prototype to prototype and technology to technology consortium can play a tremendous role. We can invest in acceleration of next G. It's clear that when we can bring in $1 billion of federal money, we can make an impact in certain key areas, some of which Dr. Sumit Roy talked about in next G. We can burn down risk in very sort of on the fringe next G technologies that others would not perhaps take a risk on, particularly for small companies who don't have access to that kind of capital, but have great ideas. We can commercialize at speed to market based on our ecosystem. We can work with folks like IEEE, DARPA, and others, not only just to prototype some of these very early concepts, but really get folks looking at this who can take this technology and bring it to market in a variety of ways. And I would say that the whole consortium itself, kind of looking at it from 50,000 feet, is in fact an ecosystem for investment, whether that comes from venture capital, private equity, or public sector. It's a really unique environment and hopefully one that is beneficial to this effort. Some examples when I'm talking about this. So we are active in what's called the Paths Working Group. This is the leading working group between the Department of Defense and the commercial industry and stakeholders in collaborating on analysis of the 3.1 to 3.4 gigahertz band as to potential sharing or use options in that band. And the results of that, we believe, will lead for future prototyping opportunities to help shape policy. And I always say prototyping makes better policy in the spectrum world. We've made contributions to 3GPP. Through the work we're doing with Dr. Roy. One of the interesting things about that is we can now quickly prototype and reduce that to practice and begin that chain of transition. That really has a unique benefit to the United States and to our consortium members and collaborators. We're hosting an Open RAN event here on July 12th. Again, how do we accelerate Open RAN? What are all the pieces? How does that look? How do we invite folks like yourselves into this? We've built a lot of DoD test beds. There are, without a doubt, in the enterprise world, I always like to say DoD is the first enterprise, and in 5G, they're the first enterprise. You'd be hard pressed to see another private enterprise investing nearly $1 billion in use cases like the Department of Defense is right now. It's an example of leadership in this dual use model. Something I think we could replicate for 6G and beyond. So how does this model work? As I said, we've got working groups. Often we take concept papers. We get together a lot and just collaborate. Would love to collaborate with the IEEE and others on just concepts, things that see if there's mutual benefit in prototyping some of these ideas and really reducing it to practice. And that's when you get into the dual path, really. You can take that the commercial path. You can take that to the DoD, but also field testing and then deployment, right? And what does that look like? We're really unique. There's a lot of insertion points in this simple diagram where folks like IEEE and others can participate and work with a consortium like the NSC. How's it going in 5G, this idea of dual use? Like I said, there's been initially about $600 million committed to the National Spectrum Consortium, where we've built out very large private enterprise and public enterprise 5G solutions. Some of these deal with smart warehouse, smart base, smart ports, AR, VR, et cetera. Looking at these innovations. Some of these are the largest, I would say, private enterprise networks in the world right now. We've ventured into high-risk 5G investment, particularly in the network and security enhancements. We believe these are places that others might not trend commercially, but that there's risk in reward in these investments by the Department of Defense in creating new companies and fostering these ideas. We've been able to pivot these learnings from these test beds as folks like Dr. Massey, and others, Dr. Roy, think about going beyond the test bed into maybe the tactical realm. What does that look like? So clearly a benefit for public sector. The non-traditionals are getting access to funds and exposure to large players. And I really think we're helping fuel the innovation and hopefully the growth in the US 5G ecosystem. There are companies in our consortium that didn't exist 4 or 5 years ago who are now building RAN equipment, they're building cores, they're building new and exciting elements of 5G. We'd like to take this model, working with folks like yourselves, and see if we can keep growing this and accelerating it for 6G and beyond. So what's next? I would agree with Manisha. We need to collaborate on spectrum now for 6G. And the way to do that is really to start thinking about these bands as prototyping makes better policy. Spectrum's a long game. It's a complicated business. It involves technology, policy, regulators. It's kind of like the pharmaceutical business. You need to get in early. You need to place some key bets. You need to hit them, and you need to pass all the regulatory hurdles. That takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of trial and error. And prototyping makes perfect sense for that. And so I would offer that this forum is an example of that. Again, with nearly $1 billion that's going to be invested in these 5G test beds, can these evolve in the next G test beds? I think they're phenomenal starting points for this in the future. And I think as a group, we in the United States, particularly through these collaborations, need to start bringing in other global consortium. As we just look at all the band harmonization that's gone on in this country over the past couple of years, is we're trying to figure out how to make available all the spectrum for 5G. What does that look like in 6G, and how do we get ahead of this now? Those are all my slides. I know it's well past the hour, so I'm pleased to be brief. Hopefully this had some value to you all in the NSC and how we might collaborate with the IEEE. If anyone is interested in working with us, please let me know. This is a two-way street. We're not just looking to we look to collaborate in reverse. We want to make everybody grow in this as we move to the 6G world. So thank you all. Thank you very much.